Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is our first episode of Mailbag. Now, what is Mailbag? Well, honestly, it's kind of the evolution of the companion videos. See, what we used to do on the John Campea Show is take live questions in Super Chat during the live show, and also take the tipped-in questions that you guys would send in the other 22 hours during the day. What we've decided to do, though, is to separate it out. And now on the John Campea Show live, we only take the live questions, and then we save all those tip-in questions that you guys send in the off hours to do here on Mailbag. So here's how you get a question on Mailbag. It's just like before. Simply go down to the description of this video and you'll see a tip link. Click on that there or enter it in manually simply at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. From there, you can send in your comment or question to be read on Mailbag. We will read your comment or question on the show if we deem your comment or question appropriate. And of course, you're going to be supporting the channel at the same time. And all of us involved here at the John Campea Show and the John Campea YouTube channel right here on Mailbag appreciate you guys so much for your support. And for this first episode of Mailbag, sometimes it'll be me, sometimes it'll be Rob, but today it's both of us. So you got me and Rob. So Robert Meyer Burnett is here. Rob, how you doing?
John, I'm happy to be here. I just wonder if there's any inappropriate questions. Can you send them my way just so I can read them?
Just so you can see what they are. I will save them because we do get some of the inappropriate ones.
Because I want to read all of those.
We get those sometimes. I'll send them your way. But guys, for now, let's jump into it and start taking your questions, shall we? And we're going back a couple of days to get caught up here. So we're going to start things off here with Chuck the Mystery, who writes, Moon Knight question for Rob, if he's there, and he is here. If not, someone else might know. Rob mentioned a character called Frenchie. That is an Alfred-type character. Is that character in the trailer at all? Is that character used after the initial comic run? Thanks. Rob, I remember you talking about this. And Frenchie, who is Frenchie? Did we get any sort of look at him in the trailer, do you think?
I didn't see Frenchie in the trailer. Now, the thing about Moon Knight is there are many different iterations of Moon Knight. He's changed over the years. Frenchie was a part of the very first original Moon Knight series that I think started in 1980 that was drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz and written by Doug Mensch. And Frenchie was a compatriot of Mark Spector's and was sort of his man Friday. They worked together. He had a moon copter in those days, and Frenchie could fly that moon copter and maintain it. Truly, he was more of a jack-of-all-trades Alfred, but he has come and gone throughout the history of Moon Knight. So I haven't seen him, and it doesn't look like that iteration, which, by the way, was the iteration I fell in love with. We're not getting that iteration. I think we're getting an amalgam of different eras of Moon Knight all put together in this show.
I'll tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. Whenever I hear Frenchie, I only think of the character on The Boys now. That's
Right.
that's who all I think about now. All right, let's keep on going here. Next up, we got another one from Chuck the Mystery, who writes, one more thing regarding the Ana de Armas yesterday lawsuit. I don't think the amount of money involved even matters. If these guys are even awarded $1, I think it sets a precedent for the studios going forward. Am I correct about this? Thanks. And yes, you are absolutely correct about that. See, I contend that in that whole discussion about the lawsuit, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, some movie fans are suing Amazon Studios and Universal for false advertising because in the trailer for the movie yesterday that came out in 2019, 2020, they have Ana de Armas in the trailers, but Ana de Armas is not in the movie. So they are suing the studio, stuff like that, and I think it's for $5 million. Now, everybody's getting caught up on the $5 million part. That part, I contend, is inconsequential. The real question here is, do studios and distributors have a responsibility to their potential consumers and customers to accurately advertise what it is they're selling? So yes, even if they just win $1, right? If the judge says, yeah, we fined for the plaintiffs in this and it's $1, the $1 doesn't get anybody off the hook because it sets a precedent, because that would be the court saying you studios are liable if we deem you're misleading the consumer. And so if they do that, that means that another lawsuit could be brought, but the damages could be completely different. Like the next judge could award $10 million. The key is that they set a precedent that the court says, yeah, movie studios, you can't just get away with putting movie stars in your trailers that aren't actually in the movies, because that in and of itself is an act of misleading them. Now, whether or not they win the case, That's a totally different thing. And then there's another total discussion about them asking for $5 million, which I know you think is a ridiculous amount. I think a lot of people probably feel that's a ridiculous amount.
I look at it this way. It's not like it's unprecedented. There have been scenes in movie trailers for decades that don't show up in the finished film. So I think and you could go watch the Ana de Armas scene in its entirety on YouTube right now if you want to. It's on social media. So I think that a judge would be like, wait a minute, is this the first studio that's ever done this? And I think it's understood that this has happened throughout Hollywood history, so it's not the first time.
But has it? Because being specific to this, I personally can't remember, although I'm sure it's happened. I'm just saying I can't personally remember when a recognizable movie star is in a trailer for a movie, and then I went to see that movie, and that movie star was not in the movie. I mean, I can think of like, oh, there was a shot, like just, we don't have to go much further back than Rogue One. There's a number of shots.
That TIE fighter shot that's rising up on the platform.
Now, of course, the TIE fighter does show up. But
I'm suing John. They didn't have that TIE fighter in it.
But who's the name of the girl who plays Jyn Erso? She's an Academy Award winner.
Why am I drawing a blank?
But she is in the movie, right?
Well, that's true.
I can't think of a situation, and again, maybe it has, but where a recognizable movie star was in the trailer, and then that movie star was just not in the movie.
I'm sure there are. I can't think of it either, but I'm sure there are. We could probably find that out. But I think here's the thing: a movie trailer is advertising the overall movie. It's not saying this is an Ana de Armas movie. It's saying here's Danny Boyle's Yesterday. It's about this. These people might be in it, yes, but the movie trailer, even when you see trailers sometimes you've seen trailers that say the credits aren't contractual yet.
Right.
And things like that. So I think if you had to list and go through and do research, as the lawyers will have to do, they'll have to find every instance of an actor not appearing in a trailer or something that no one, to prove this is common practice. Trailers are made while movies are in production. So
I think what a judge is going to have to do is the judge will determine, would a consumer reasonably, not beyond shadow of a doubt, but would a consumer reasonably believe that Ana de Armas is in this movie by watching the trailer? And I think if the judge concludes that, yes, it would be reasonable for a consumer to assume that Ana de Armas is in this movie, we may be getting some precedent set.
Could be.
But you know what? Precedent's going to get set either way, because if a judge says no, then that sets a precedent too. So we're going to see, I think this is going to be a very interesting case to keep our eyes on, because whichever way it goes, it's going to set precedent and I think have some pretty broad-ranging ramifications.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
We'll see. All right, next up. Gregory Barrett writes, "Hey, John and Super Friends, Newfoundland, Canada. Nice. Theaters are still closed. That sucks, man. I can't access much of the content you talk about. No HBO Max here either. Sad to say, I may have to stop listening." I get it. I mean, because listen, if you are stuck in a place in the country now, movie theaters have started opening again in Canada. We've been hearing from our Canadian, my brethren, our fellow film fans up there, that movie theaters are starting to reopen, which is great. But I get it, Gregory. If you're like in Newfoundland and there's no movie theaters open and you don't have HBO Max, and we're constantly talking about whether it's Peacemaker or Boba Fett or Spider-Man or whatever, I get it. You may have to pump the brakes on for a bit. It sucks, but I totally get it, Gregory. All right, next up, Jed Elias writes, "Hey, John, longtime fan of the show. Thank you so much, Jed. I didn't get to see Wednesday's show live, but I just finished listening to the podcast, and I have several thoughts. One, you were hoping The Rock doesn't do animated video game movie. What about something like Arcane? Might have said this already. Forgot just to add my name. No problem. Any video game idea could work. Just depends on the story and execution. We'll get to this part 2 here in a second. Yeah, no. Listen, I'm not saying I don't want The Rock to do a video game animated thing,
right? Because
I hate animated stuff. But if The Rock is going to come out and say, I'm working on a video game thing that I've been playing for years and it's the badass thing, blah, blah. Well, yeah, now I want that thing to be live action.
Yeah.
Animated stuff can be great. Arcane's fantastic. But if The Rock's going to come out and talk about this, that's what I want. Okay. 2, Ray needs his own Netflix special after that Trade Federation joke. 3, I went to Sundance 2022 this year. One of my favorite movies I saw was Fresh, a new comedy horror thriller starring Sebastian Stan. Please keep an eye out for it on Hulu on March 4th. I'm not familiar with it, so thanks for putting that on my radar, Jed. 4, what's your most underrated Robert Pattinson performance? Only seen The Lighthouse, so I can't say. It's a toss-up, I think, between High Life and Good Time. There's Rover is a big one, too.
You know, I know it's obvious, but I loved him in Tenet. He was my favorite thing in Tenet.
He was great in Tenet.
He was so great. Like, he brought so much, whenever he was on screen, well, I don't know, call it a bubbly effervescence if you can for that movie. I mean, I really liked him in the film. He
was a grounding presence of that movie.
He really was.
Yeah,
I really liked him.
All right, so he keeps going on here, and we've got HBO Max needs to pull a Boba Fett with their Peacemaker show overseas. Why fight when working together could make us all rich? Well, I mean, yeah, listen, I've been saying that for a long time. I do not understand why more of these streaming services that are not in certain markets don't do what CBS All Access did when they launched Discovery. When they launched the TV show Star Trek Discovery, and they weren't in a lot of territories, they made deals with other exhibitors in those territories so fans in those territories could watch them. I wish these people would do the same.
Yeah.
6, going to Disneyland for the second time ever over President's Day weekend. I'm so excited. Thanks for taking my questions. Well, Rob, I don't know if you know this. I'm not going to Disneyland.
I know.
I am done. I am done with Disneyland. Over. Fini. I have been a season pass holder for at least 7 years. Well, probably 7 years prior to the pandemic starting. I was a Disneyland season pass holder every year, faithfully. And I've been growing dissatisfied with certain things there. But when Ann and I went for our anniversary, we booked the Disneyland Hotel, which ain't cheap, but it's our anniversary. So we booked the Disneyland Hotel, and you had to book your passes in advance because there was no annual passes back yet.
Right.
So we booked our passes in advance, booked the hotel, went, and we went for 2 main reasons. We wanted to do the new Avengers area, the web slinger thing, and we wanted to do the Rise of the Resistance ride. 2 things we wanted to do. Spent a lot of money getting the hotel, buying our passes, setting our days aside, and we didn't even have to travel far. We just had to drive an hour up the road. To get on either of these 2 rides, you have to get in a virtual queue at 7 a.m. Fine. We got in the virtual queue at 5 to 7. Wasn't open yet. Kept refreshing. Like clockwork. 7 a.m. becomes available. Book our spot. Sorry, sold out. We're like, what? Sorry, sold out. All right. Next one. Well, let's see if we can get in the web slinger ride. And it went on at a certain time. Sure enough, 5 minutes before we're in there, hitting refresh, but sorry, all booked for today.
Yeah.
And so then I go, okay, let's see if we can get refunds of our day pass and reschedule for another day so we can come back and get the rides. Oh, we're sorry, sir. You have to cancel your pass at least 24 hours in advance. But we can't find out if the rides we want to ride are totally booked until we're here the day of. I didn't know 24 hours ago that we weren't going to be able to get on the rides we wanted to get on. We spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on one night in your hotel. We booked our holiday. We came here for our honeymoon, for our anniversary. And you're telling me that F you, too bad, sucker? Yeah, we're telling you, F you, too bad, sucker. You gotta request a refund at least 24 hours in advance before you can possibly find out if the attractions you came for are not available to you. And as soon as I get it, and everybody, all these Disney apologists right into me. Oh, sometimes rides are packed. I understand sometimes rides are packed. I get that. But we went for those rides. They weren't available to us. Just let me get a refund on my ticket so I can come back another day when they are open. No problem. Easy breezy. But they set up their system purposefully to screw you. It's like, too late. We've got your money now. Too bad. Buy more tickets to come back more days and maybe you'll get lucky. And after that, I went, I'm done.
I don't think they have that
Done with
virtual queue system anymore.
No, they've changed it. Now you've got to pay for it.
Because
it's something called the Genie system or something.
Because it was doing to people exactly what you're saying. I mean,
Pissed a lot of people off.
were gaming the system. I think there were Disney fans that would just go, they weren't even at the park.
Oh my God. I just remember being so, this is coming from a 7-year thing. And so now I've been watching so many videos on the Genie system. Like so many Disney park fans are so pissed at this. Genie, you got to pay $15 to get a spot in the line, like on top of the already exorbitant prices.
Yeah,
you pay.
it's not cool.
So I don't know. So I'm done. I'm done with Disneyland. You know what I love? I love Universal Park. I love Universal Hollywood. So Ann and I go there. Now, Ann is going to Disneyland again. Her and her friend Kat, they go. I'm like, sorry, baby, I ain't going with you. I'm done with Disneyland.
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth went this past Sunday because our friend Eugene that works for Disney, got passes. So we went,
Nice.
but they went, it was Sunday morning. They got there early. When it opened, they just went right. The first thing he did was Rise of the Resistance.
And listen, right before the pandemic shut everything down, we got on the Rise of Resistance. Before the pandemic shut everything down. It's a great ride. It is a truly, truly, truly great ride. I wish it would have been in the Star Wars original trilogy era as opposed to the sequel trilogy, but still, it is a magnificent ride. It really is. But I'll never ride it again. I might try Disney in Florida. If we're down in Florida, I might give it a shot. But I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, sorry, that's my bitch, whine, and complain moment for the day. All right. Next up, Josh writes, "Hey, John and crew. You often say that all film and TV is subjective, while Robert Meyer Burnett says entertainment can be objectively good or bad. But I have to say that I agree with Rob because I recently watched Star Trek Discovery and it is objectively the best Star Trek show ever made." Well, you just managed to write a little something that both Rob and I can both hate. And hate what you wrote for different reasons. Although I got a feeling that was his goal. Let's write that in.
Yeah, John, I can't go there. I can actually, whether it's, look, people's opinions are subjective, but I do think that, on a scale of whatever you need to measure something, I think you could demonstrably prove that Star Trek Discovery is not as good as certain other Star Treks by a measure of storytelling. I don't know quite what that is, but I think the reason being is that from a Star Trek standpoint, I think that there has yet to be an episode. Like, let me ask you, can you name an episode of Star Trek Discovery that has a storyline that you can recall? Something that happened in a Discovery episode that you were like, oh my God, remember when that happened?
Oh yeah, man. Like I was actually, I was showing Ann a couple of the episodes from like season 2 and stuff like that. Like I remember it a lot. Now I thought you were about to ask me a different question. I thought you were about to ask me, can I think of a storyline in Star Trek Discovery that was as good as the Borg Picard storyline?
Well, I was going to make the point that I was...
No, I can't.
Yes.
No, but to me, Next Generation, clearly the superior show.
Right.
It is. But I still really like Discovery for what it is.
That's the point that I was going to make. That I think that one of the, history has proven that Star Trek, the original series Star Trek, the Next Generation are both iconic, not just Star Trek shows, but
they've
television.
stood the test of time.
Yes. And I think that the jury's out on whether that's true for Star Trek Discovery or not.
Yeah, we're about 10 years away from that. But yeah. I mean, I don't think it'll hold the place that those two.
No, because
even though I like it, it's not going to take the place that in history like Next Generation does.
Yes.
All right, let's move on here.
But that doesn't mean our viewer can't love Star Trek Discovery, that he thinks it's his favorite Star Trek show.
All right, Silverback Jr. writes, "John, love the show. Thank you so much, Silverback. You said that you think Peacemaker is the best show DC has ever made. Yeah, I mean, it's a little early to say that definitively because we're only a number of episodes in, but so far, yes, has ever made. But what about the absolute best portrayal of Batman in Batman, the animated series? Everything about that show is just chef's kiss. Mwah. I'm going to say the unpopular thing. Now, before you get too worried, I'm not going to say, I don't like the Batman animated series. I love the Batman animated series.
Sure.
I totally do. And I got some heated response from when I said this once before.
Uh-oh.
The Batman in the Batman the Animated Series is perfect for the animated medium. Perfect for the animated medium. I submit that Batman done the exact same way in live action would not have been received as well. I really believe that. Now, again, it hasn't happened, so I can't prove that, but So I love that Batman. I love that animated series, but I love it for what it is in the medium that it's in. I just don't know if it would play as well live action.
I have to agree with you.
Really? I thought you disagree.
No,
I
I agree with you because I don't think it's fair to compare animation and live action as being on the same. They're different mediums. And I think that you can't say that, look, everything that you see in Batman the Animated Series is drawn. Whereas figuring out where to put a camera and getting an actor's performance and it's a different discipline. Sure, you're still telling stories in a visual medium, but the thought process behind how to create that storytelling is wildly different. So the Batman the Animated Series is a great show.
It is.
It is a great show, but I think what you meant in the first place is that when you're thinking best DC series, I think animation is different than live action. I don't consider them interchangeable.
All right, next up. We've got Wildstar197 writes, I don't know why, but with all that's being said about Moonfall, now I have to go see it to see just how bad it is. Maybe it's a weird thing, but even though you know it's probably going to be a bad movie, you try to find some way to make the experience fun. But you know what, Rob, you said, the way you said it earlier, I completely agree with. Because I said coming out of the movie, even though I didn't like that movie, I love going to the movies. And you said something earlier today was about, you didn't like the movie, but you really enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, I did.
Right?
I did. I had fun. Look, it's not a great movie. But then again, it didn't make me wince and cringe and want to leave the theater like some movies have. I was enjoying I'm like, this is silly, but I had fun watching it.
Yeah, I did cringe. I cringed many times.
Well, I did. I mean, I cringed, but not in a way where I wanted to get up and leave.
Yeah, no. I never felt like getting up and walking out. All right. Moonfallen writes, I recently saw a leak for the casting of the Fantastic Four characters, and my God, I hope this is fake. Gled Howerston as Reed Richards, Kristen Bell as Sue Storm, Chase Stokes as Johnny Storm, and Seth Rogen as Ben Grimm. What are your thoughts if this is true? We're not even going to, what's the word I'm looking for? We're not even going to give this the respect of even a response. They haven't written the script for the movie yet. So no, it's just not even worth. It's not even worth discussing. Moonfall. It's not even worth discussing. All right, Dangerous D writes, "Hey John, now that Peacemaker has been the biggest streaming TV series for HBO Max, should they finally open up the DC vault and get more characters from their vast library to make it into a series like Legion of Superheroes, Wildcat, Dial H for Hero, Plastic Man, Dead Man? No, because here's the thing: people start looking at the wrong causation.
Yes, they do.
This Peacemaker show doesn't work because they picked an obscure character from the ranks of DC. That's what makes it work. No, it works because they got James Gunn. And James Gunn had a vision for a great, entertaining show. He knew how to breathe life and entertainment and laughs and excitement all into the show that made it endear to us. It's not because they got some things. So no, look, I'm not saying they have to avoid those characters either. Success formula isn't about avoiding the unknown characters, but none of it matters. Rob, people say to me, which villain should be in this next superhero movie? And I always say, I don't care, because whatever villain you pick will have no bearing on how good or bad the movie is. One of the greatest comic book villains in history, I think we all agree, is Dr. Doom. Maybe not the greatest, you might think is, but he's definitely one of the greatest. They've used him in 4 movies, and none of them been good. You think putting Dr. Doom in them made the movie good? No. So, like with this, it has nothing to do which characters they pull out of the archives. It really doesn't. All it matters is, do they get somebody like a James Gunn who can come in and have this idea for a show and what kind of life and personality that show's going to have that'll work well. And that's all that matters. How would you address that?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, John, we're getting a version of the Riddler in this new The Batman movie.
Totally different version of it too.
And look at Jim Carrey's Riddler. They're wildly divergent characters. They might as well be from different universes. It's not just a character, it's how that character is portrayed within the movie that's being made.
Yes.
I have to tell you, one of my favorite DC villains is Brother Blood, who's a Teen Titans villain. He was announced as being in the new season of Titans. And I'm like, I can't wait to see that. But if they don't portray that character could go one of 10 different ways. And if it goes a bad way, it could be ridiculous.
And they used Brother Blood was in Arrow.
Yep.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was portrayed, I'm forgetting the actor's name and I feel bad about it, but the actor who plays Detective Douche in Lucifer, I believe he played Brother Blood, if I'm remembering it correctly.
But it was a very different version. And if they're going to do Brother Blood and Mother Mayhem and the whole cult and all that, I can't wait.
All right, next up, we got Alex Phillips, who writes, "Hey, John and Co. I've been watching your show for years and want to say that both you and Rob have inspired me to follow my passion and go into filmmaking."
Good for you.
There are very few things we love hearing more than that. I mean, there's a couple things that really get me excited. When somebody writes and says, "I watch more movies today because of you guys," that gets us excited. People saying they actually want to go into filmmaking too because of that. That's high praise, Alex. And we take that very seriously, and we're really honored by that. And best of luck to you, man, in your journey. All right, next up. Orange Grove 55 writes, "Did you notice the airport droid in the Book of Boba Fett episode 5 was the same type as droid as the old Star Wars Star Tours pilot Rex? I love that."
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the first things.
100%. I was like, yeah.
I mean, that was a great little wink and throwback
Yep.
and kind of tying all that together. And honestly, what could have been the dumbest scene, not just of the episode, but of the series. Really? Mando gets stopped by the TSA. Really? Could have been the dumbest episode of the series. Might be one of my favorite moments of the whole series so far.
And I have to tell you, it's kind of an homage to a scene in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. When Mad Max first arrives at the city in Beyond Thunderdome, and he gets stopped, "Give me all your weapons." And he's pulling weapons, and I'm like, it had to be an homage from Mad Max.
Well,
because he does, I mean, it was the same kind of thing, almost shot the same way, where he keeps pulling out the weapons, and there's
didn't they do
more
that in
and more
The
and more.
Mask, and they did the
It's
same
true.
thing, and like they've had lots.
But I
of
think
things
Beyond
of that.
Thunderdome's got to be one of the first.
That might have been it. That might have been
I
it.
loved that. That was the first thing I thought about, and I loved it for that reason.
All right, next up, we got Jesse Shook, who writes, "Call it a crazy theory, but the mythosaur on Boba's shoulder plate leads me to believe that he might have been a Deal Watch," probably mean Death Watch,
Yeah.
As well at some point. And the reason why is not Mandalorian, probably the reason why you probably meant he is not Mandalorian is because he took off his helmet. What if he goes with Din Djarin to the living waters beneath Mandalore, and they both redeem and are Mandalorian again? Crazy theory, right? 2 of 2. Well, here's the problem. It's a very well-constructed theory. The problem with the theory is they've already kind of established that that's not his history.
Right.
Go back to Mandalorian season 2 when Boba Fett is interacting with the other Mandalorians and stuff like that. There's some dialogue exchange there that pretty much, and his conversation with Din at the same time. You are not Mandalorian. You remove your helmet. And then they have that whole big exchange. He kind of reveals a bunch of the history. So I don't think that's what they're doing, unless you're thinking something I can't remember.
I don't think that's what they're doing either. But you never know. I mean, I'm not up on my Mandalorian lore the way I probably should be.
All right. Next up, we go over to Salaman Kura. I hope I'm saying that right, man. All right. Hey guys, I remember you were joking that Moonfall should sponsor you. I have seen their ads on your show. Don't know if that's significant money, but at least they have indirectly sponsored you. Haha, cheers. I have had several people actually write in and tell me that one of the ads that YouTube has put on our videos is Moonfall ads, which makes sense because we've been talking a lot about Moonfall. There was a lot of excitement in this room about Moonfall until we saw it, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Thanks for sending that in, man. All right, next up, we've got Simon Eskel, and Simon Eskel writes, "Hey everyone, 1 of 2. Fun Peacemaker fact. Wigwam, the Norwegian band who performs the opening song, if you really want to taste it." I love that song.
That's great.
I start tapping my toes every time I think of it. The Norwegian band who performs the opening song to the show was dropped by their booking agency just days before the premiere due to COVID and the lack of interest in our national spandex-wearing heroes. Well, Joke's on them because they are now represented by a much larger agency and are booking their first US tour. Also, never stop the podcast part of the show. I'll have or I will have to dedicate 7,682 minutes of 2021 or something less worthy. My girlfriend is kind of jealous. By the way, when the calendar turned over, I had so many people writing in, sending me the graphics of their Spotify year in review, showing that the John Campea Show was their number one most listened to thing of the year.
Wow.
How many minutes they listened to, which I thought was, but that is funny because listen, I'm going to admit something. A lot of the music they play in Peacemaker, I do not recognize. Some of it I do, but they go deep cuts.
Yeah.
On that, like a lot of this, I just assumed that some of the ones were just original music they made up to put in there, but it's actually all deep cut stuff.
Absolutely.
Did you recognize like which ones?
There's a lot of stuff that I don't I mean, you know what? I've heard it before, but I don't know what it is. You know, and James Gunn's really good about that. The mixtapes and Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, I'm sure he's picking this music.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure he's picking it.
Yeah, he's this show's kind of like become a little playground for him to come up with all that stuff.
And it's working.
Oh, it absolutely is. All right, next up, Joel writes, "Hey, John and crew, I love all you guys and think your channel is great for the film fan community. Thank you so much for that, Joel. Your show brings a lot of happiness to me and many others. I appreciate all the hard work you guys do to make this show so amazing. Thank you." Oh, Joel, that is so nice. It's always really cool when somebody wants to write in just to say something nice like that. So thank you for the kind words, Joel, and thank you for being part of our community and watching the show along with us. We really appreciate that, man. All right, next up, Mr. Kaplan writes, "Hey, John, I'm sure you've seen Arnold Schwarzenegger has dropped an image on Twitter of him as Zeus for an upcoming project. That in and of itself is exciting to me. I think he looks great, but what's surprising is it says February 2022, thoughts about Arnie as Zeus." All right. Have you seen this?
I did. I saw it yesterday with the gray hair.
The gray hair and the whole
greenish armor or whatever.
Hold on a second. Let me see what I can pull up here. Okay, so I just pulled up the image so you guys can see what it is we're talking about. There it is. That's an image that Arnold. Now, I honestly, when I first saw this, I thought it was something like, who's the great fan art guy online? Boss Logic. I thought who was a national treasure for film for fans, the fan community. When I first saw this, my first thought was like it was Boss Logic or something, but apparently Arnold is the one who put it up. I am not familiar with any project. I don't think this is anything. Is it?
I don't know. I that's why I'm like, where did this come from? Is it a Super Bowl ad? I don't know.
Let me see if I can find out something here because I don't know anything about it.
I'm still waiting for King Conan. Come on, when are they gonna make that movie?
Well, yeah, where is King Conan? You know what? I think the folks over at GameSpot got it right. I think this is going to be a Super Bowl ad.
Yeah.
Because remember, they've done that a couple of times with Super Bowl ads where they intimated something that looked like it was a movie, but it was really just Super Bowl ad. If he's saying February 2022, this is definitely a Super Bowl.
It's got to be a Super Bowl ad. By the way, Conan the Barbarian's 40 years old this year.
Wow.
In May, it'll be 40.
Crom. By Crom.
I mean, I can't believe that movie's 40.
I can't even think about it. Who wrote the score for that?
Basil Polidoris.
Basil Polidoris.
Such a good score.
It is. It's amazing.
Basil's what you put on your pizza.
Basically, that's a very different thing.
Or maybe not.
All right. Next up here, we've got Hold On Till May writes, "Hello, team. After 25 years of living, I finally decided to watch Lord of the Rings and went with the extended edition.
Good for you.
I just finished Fellowship, and all I can say is, wow. I can't believe I waited this long. I'm now listening to the score on repeat." Listen, there's a lot of stuff in film fandom that you may or may not have ever been a part of, like whether it's a Citizen Kane or whether it's whatever. And they're destined to not live up to the immortal levels of hype they have, right? No matter how great they are. It's just that the level of hype is just so good. They're such a part of the pop cultural canon that you go in with these ridiculous expectations, and most of them are destined to not live up to that hype. I would suggest The Godfather is not one of those.
Right.
Star Wars is not one of those. Lord of the Rings is definitely not one of those. No matter how old it is, whatever, you will be floored when you watch Lord of the Rings. And Rob, I can only imagine because you were there when they were making Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You were there. I never did ask you this, but as you're there and you're getting your footage and you're seeing this movie being made, obviously everybody in the kind of nerd community was excited because it's Tolkien being brought to life.
Right.
Did you have any sort of a sense as you were there, as this film's being made, that just how big and important these movies were?
Well, we didn't get down there until after Fellowship had come out.
You were down there for Two Towers. Well, Two Towers
they were doing the pickups and then for Return of the King. So what was interesting was we didn't see anything when we started. The first thing that we saw was the 20-minute can reel that they showed that no one had seen. Literally, no one had seen any of it. We started working on this disc, and we hadn't seen the movie because the movie hadn't come out. We started in the summer before the Christmas season, the holiday season. And when we went and saw, it was a group of us. There was like 15 of us. We were taken into this screening room at New Line. John, they showed a lot of that Minds of Moria sequence. And honestly, I never felt like I'd like fantasy movies like Dragon Slayer. I loved Excalibur and all that, but I didn't love them the way I loved, say, Star Wars and Empire or something. We were all sitting in there. That Minds of Moria scene, and remember, we saw it out of context. My jaw was on the floor.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
And Sean Bean saying, they have a cave troll.
It was no one, it's only the people in that can crowd had seen it. And we're all sitting there going, well, we hope it's good. It was literally like to think that's how we felt about it because we were going to have to work on it. And it was like we walked, I don't think I've ever been so elated. And we only saw 20 minutes of the thing. And it was jaw-dropping. And then we started getting footage, the behind-the-scenes footage, and then I actually got to go to New Zealand. And it was amazing. It was amazing. Especially going down. Wellington is not a big city. It's a beautiful city. It's surrounded by water, and there's these beautiful green hills. It looks kind of like Middle Earth, but there's a downtown, but it's not some sprawling metropolis. And Weta's like in the middle of a neighborhood, not unlike this one. And you go there and you're like, they're making magic in this. The whole place felt like Middle Earth, and it was incredible.
Just if you've not seen the Lord of the Rings films, all we can tell you is that it lives up to every ounce of the hype, and you absolutely must watch it.
And it just keeps getting better.
Yeah. Listen, there's a reason why a lot of hardcore movie fans, Lord of the Rings is an annual event. A lot of hardcore movie fans, it's once a year you have to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's just that good. But so get on that, man. I'm glad you got on that. Hold on. All right, next up, Ethan Holgate writes, 1 or 2. Hi, John. So happy to hear that you loved Belfast. I did. I was really impressed. I didn't know what to make of it, to be honest with you, when I saw parts of it down at CinemaCon, but it is beautiful. Anyway, I saw it recently and absolutely loved it myself. Beautiful black and white cinematography. I felt like I was in Belfast in the 1960s with how immersive it was. Also, loved a lot of the one-take shots, in the film. Very well done. Being Irish myself, I can confirm that this film is certainly very Irish in terms of family and culture, and love the history story of that time that Kenneth Branagh explored. I wonder if he had a similar childhood to Buddy. Well, here's the thing. I think we've heard Branagh say this was kind of a love letter to his experience growing up. So it's very, very much like that. And listen, Ethan, I can completely relate, and I think most people can. When you see a movie, look, whenever I mention Ryan Reynolds, what's the next words that come out of my mouth?
Good Canadian kid.
Whenever somebody's like, even something is remotely attached to Canada, I will harp on that. When we have something in the movies or in the entertainment, or I love the UFC, right? So when a fighter comes in who's either Canadian or Italian, I get very excited, right? So it's completely understandable that being Irish yourself, to see a movie that kind of captures the life of that, I think that's amazing, and one of the things that makes it really special. You really enjoyed this one, right?
Oh yeah, I love movies that are evocative of a time and a place that I've never been to. I've never been to Ireland.
Neither have I. Yeah.
I've wanted to go my whole life, and I seem to love, one of my favorite movies of the last decade was Sing Street.
So good.
So good. I love that movie, and I think that movie is very distinctly Irish.
Yep.
It's obviously steeped, and the Commitments. I don't know why all the Irish movies I love are about music, but they seem to be.
Well, I've always wanted to go to Ireland just because that's where U2's from. So I've always wanted to go to see where U2 is from,
U2
right?
and Redheads.
Yeah, there you go. That's where it all comes from. All right. Next up, Kevin Komaki just sent in a $5 tip to support the channel. Thank you, Kevin. And by the way, guys, I mean, obviously this is very self-serving, but if you guys just want to send in a tip to support the show and you don't have a question like Kevin Komaki just did, by all means do. And thank you so much for that support, Kevin. All right. Mac Headroom writes, one of two. Happy New Year, John and crew. We have 3 major Pixar legacy film series that need to be brought to a close. Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, and The Incredibles. Mind you, most of the cast for these series are also getting quite older. Which threequel film do you believe will be in production first? Number 2, which film, Disney Plus not available, will make the most at the box office? Thank you all. I honestly think the time for all 3 of them has passed. Monsters Inc. definitely, and they've now got TV series.
Right. Yeah.
Right. They've got that monster. I don't think they're going back to Monsters Inc. I think while I loved Finding Nemo 2, Finding Dory,
I loved it.
It's great. The octopus in it, and it's great. But I also feel like it's done.
I agree.
The one that I think there is still wiggle room to do another one is The Incredibles. But when you consider that it took Brad Bird 73 years to come back to do the second one.
Yeah.
And the fact that, listen, Coach is still here. Holly Hunter is still here. Samuel L. Jackson is still here. If they're going to do it, if we don't hear an announcement by the end of 2023, it's not going to happen.
I have a question.
But if any of them are going to happen, I think it would be The Incredibles.
Do you consider Lightyear part of the Toy Story quadrilogy?
That is a great question, and I do not. Because it feels like this isn't our Buzz Lightyear, right?
No, it's the guy that Buzz is based on.
It's the guy Buzz is based on.
I thought, what a great thing to do. I love this idea.
Great.
I think it's great.
I love the idea as well, but I don't consider it a part of the Toy Story series.
Right.
I might be right or wrong about that.
I don't either, though. That's why I asked.
If what's Clint's son's name again? Scott.
Scott Eastwood.
If Scott Eastwood decided to do a Western like his dad, following his dad's footsteps.
Unforgiven 2.
And do a movie called Snake in My Boot. And he plays the cowboy Woody. I wouldn't consider that part of the Toy Story. Yeah, I would just consider it its own separate thing. So that's my take on it. All right. Next up, Anesh writes, like most IMAX around the world, the one in my area is not 70 millimeter film. It is 4K dual laser and the screen is pretty big. Are there other immersive movie theater experiences that you guys prefer? D-Box, 4DX, Dolby Atmos, etc. Well, Anesh, here's the thing. I've said for a long time that my theater of choice is the Dolby AMC Prime. That will always be my first choice to go to. After that, I will go to IMAX. And then after IMAX, there's some other things I will do. But Rob, this has been a controversy for a while because there are a lot of IMAX screens in LA. But if I'm not mistaken, there's only 3 real IMAX screens in LA.
Yeah.
So there's the one at Universal City Walk. There's the one at the IMAX headquarters, which is where I went to go see the second Fantastic Beasts movie. Me and Cody Miller went to go watch that there. And where's the third? The third one's in the West End.
Chinese. The Chinese.
Wasn't there one further in the West End?
There used to be the Bridge.
That's what I was thinking. Is that not there anymore?
I don't know. I haven't been there in
either.
ages, but I love that theater. I love because the true IMAX theaters have huge screens, the sloping seats, but I have to go the reverse of you. I go to IMAX first and then but I would have to say this. The movie has to have an IMAX component to see it in IMAX. Otherwise, it's cool on an IMAX screen. But like seeing Moonfall at your Dolby, the Burbank 16 Dolby Prime Theater, that was awesome.
That's a great experience.
I mean, it really is. The picture and sound are...
Well, it's a combination, right? Because it's the combination of the picture, the sound, and your comfort. Because those motorized leather recliners, the built-in subwoofer things right in the seats. So you take all of that into consideration. I mean, the sound is amazing in that theater. So it's that overall experience. But yeah, I think if it was just based on picture, Man, I still like that Dolby dual laser projection.
It's amazing, but the IMAX laser projection, is great.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't go wrong.
No, and when they upgraded, I think in 2015 or something, I couldn't believe. I was like, "This is amazing."
Yep, it's great. All right, next up, we got Mr. Shen who writes 1 of 2. Hey, John and crew, longtime fan since the AMC days, and hello from Taiwan. Well, thank you, Mr. Shen. Good to have you here, dude. Horror is my least favorite genre because I really hate being scared. However, when The Conjuring came out in 2013, the reviews it got were crazy good, which got me really interested in it, and so I had dragged some of my friends to go watch it with me. I loved it. It then opened up my palette a bit to try out some more horror films. I still won't go out of my way to watch a horror film, but I think it's safe to say that The Conjuring is my favorite film in my least favorite genre. My question for you is, what's your favorite film from your least favorite genre? Thanks, and bring on the filthy. All right, thanks a lot for writing that in. See, that's a great question because I don't know that I have a least favorite genre. Like, I love a great period piece. I love a good biography.
Yeah.
I love, obviously, a great action film and fantasy films and comedy. See, it's not like music. Music, I like just about it. You go on my playlist, I got everything from Groban to, some older Luciano Pavarotti to Metallica to Rob Zombie to U2 to Coldplay, to Public Enemy to, Kool Moe Dee to whoever, to Snoop Dogg. I got it all. Except country. I do not like country music. So if you were to ask me, what's my favorite musician or song in my least favorite genre? Well, my least favorite genre is country, and I'll go almost anything by Blake Shelton. Like
but there's country singers you like.
I really like Blake Shelton. I really like the dude. But with movies, I don't know that I have a least favorite genre. What about you?
Dude, this is going to be terrible to admit. I even like musicals. I had a total aversion to Westerns growing up.
Really? See, I wouldn't have guessed that. I would have guessed that you were a Western guy growing up.
I should be because, half of science fiction movies are Westerns in space or whatever. I crashed at a friend of mine's house. I must have been 22. And somehow I got up at 5 in the morning and John Ford's The Searchers. John Wayne, Jeffrey Hunter, The Searchers was on. One of the most classic Westerns ever made. It started like 5 a.m. For some reason I got up. I was sleeping on the floor or something, my friend's apartment. And I turned it on and I started watching and I was mesmerized. I was like, what's going to happen? Like I was completely, because I like space and the future. And Bonanza was on when I was a kid. I'm like, I don't want to watch that. After that, I went on a Western binge. Like here I was in my early 20s. I'm thinking, I don't like Westerns. And I just went on a Western tear and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like I was watching Stagecoach and High Noon. And then I saw the Man with No Name trilogy. And then in 1992 when Unforgiven was coming out,
changed the game, man.
I'd seen all of Clint Eastwood's movies. High Plains, Drifter, not just the Man with No Name movie. The Outlaw Josie Wales. I mean, dude, and then I saw Unforgiven. And I'm like, I said this it's the guy and I was with, my friend Wayne Mogilevsky, we both turned to each other and were like, that movie, because it came out in the summer, that movie's going to win Best Picture. And I never would have thought I would have said that.
And it won everything.
I was like, the whole deconstruction, and now I own a bunch of Westerns now, but I didn't like Westerns. And you know why I didn't like them? I hadn't seen any of them. I hadn't seen them, dude. I was making a judgment call before I had the right knowledge to do. So I was a douche. When it came to Westerns, I was a douchey douche.
I think that's typical of a lot of fans, though. And I mean, the only reason why I was really into Westerns is because my dad watched them all the time. Like my dad would watch all the classic Westerns. And like when we got our first VHS player, I mean, that's all he ever came back from the rental store with was like the Westerns. And that's what kind of was my baptism into them. But again, with Unforgiven, it's one of the greatest films ever made.
I agree.
When you look at thematically what goes on in that movie, and that's why when people ask me, and it's not, people used to say, well, you're only saying Unforgiven because it's a recent film. Can't really say that. It's now 30 years old. I honestly believe it is the greatest Western of all time.
Also, it's such a deconstruction. I mean, it's got this one moment, too, one of my favorite moments, how William Money hasn't drank for no drinking and no wickedness for 10 years. Yep. And when the woman comes and rides a horse and she's like, Ned's dead. Ned's in front of Greeley's, and you just see Clint Eastwood like take the Schofield kid's bottle, and he's trying to contemplate what's happened to Morgan Freeman's character, and he just takes a drink. And you're like, oh. I mean, that movie, it's so beautifully done. It's so simple and yet so elegant. Oh, my God, I love
Let's
that
talk
movie.
Gene Hackman in that
Dude,
for a second.
The Duck of Death.
Gene Hackman. Well, and then, of course, Richard Harris.
Oh. His whole speech about why you wouldn't kill a... It's so king.
Richard Harris, a.k.a. Dumbledore, the guy who many, many years later would go on to play Dumbledore. Him, and then the dude from Star Trek The Next Generation as his scribe.
Saul Rubinek.
Yeah, I mean, that whole stuff. But the interesting thing about Hackman's character, while the villain, he is one of the best types of villains in movies. The best type of villains in movies to me are the villains who truly believe they're the good guys.
Yeah.
And even when you get right down to that last scene when he's down on the floor and Eastwood's over him, and what is it he specifically says that Hackman specifically says is like I don't deserve this, or like I deserve better, not like this. And what is it that Eastwood says?
I forget.
It deserve has nothing to do with it or what we.
It deserves.
What, yeah. I mean, of course, the most iconic line out of that movie is, "It's a hell of a thing killing a man. You take away everything he's got and everything he's ever gonna have."
So good.
But at the end, like Hackman, like he's vile to you in many ways, but yet at the end, right before he dies, there's a part of you that can't help but sympathize with him a little bit, right?
Well, yeah, because he's kept law and order in this town, and this legendary, mythical, horrible gunfighters rolled into his town, and he's just trying to stop bad things from happening. And the prostitutes have called in local gunfighters to come in and take revenge. I mean, in a way, Gene Hackman's character has all of this wickedness descend upon him. Not that he wanted it to. And he's like, look, I've kept my town straight. I didn't know that some idiot was going to cut one of the whores in the town. That's what they call them. I'm not being,
that's what.
But it's in this movie. And that's the whole point, is that they send out a bounty, on the guys. And Hackman's like, it gets out of control. And even him, he can't. And even what they call out for, by the time the gunfighters roll in, they think they cut off this girl's body parts and they did these horrible things to her. And so it's all about legend, the truth, and what's real and what's not real, and the legend of people, and how it's when you demythologize everything, dude. It's such a great movie.
And then Morgan Freeman's character with his wife, like that's the thing. I think it's almost like there's a part of me that thinks the wife almost becomes the emotional fulcrum of the movie, because as everything is starting to transpire, she kind of represents collateral damage. Freeman's woman, she kind of represents collateral damage, because all the lifestyle that they choose, that's what's left in their wake as they go through and it's just, there's so many layers to this movie that are so. I rewatched it again about 2 years ago, and I got to do it again. Anyway, guys, if you have not seen Unforgiven, I believe it is the greatest Western of all time, but you guys got to check it out for yourselves at some point. But listen, guys, that'll do it for all of our time here today on our inaugural install of Mailbag. Now, listen, there are more questions to come, no doubt, but don't worry. We're going to have another episode of Mailbag tomorrow, so keep your guys' eyes open for it. I want to thank, of course, Robert Meyer Burnett for being here with me. Rob, thanks for doing this, and you're going to be on this one again tomorrow, but where can people find you online?
Watching Unforgiven again.
Yes.
I'm going to go, right now. You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett or RMB. Find me on Twitter at Burnett RM, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
And of course, you guys can follow me on social media, on Twitter and on Instagram, simply at John Campea, right down there. And once again, guys, if you have a question or a comment or a thought that you'd like shared on a Mailbag episode, we're going to be doing a few of these every single week. Go ahead down into the description. You'll see a tip link, or enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Send in your comment or question. We'll read it here on the show if we deem it appropriate to be used on our show. And of course, it's a way for you to support our channel at the same time. So thank you guys so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.